good morning, good evening, good night, good whatever time of day it is. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Dr. Don. Tonight's show is titled Impressions of Southeast Asia Today. Now, for your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and about whatever it is that we've agreed to talk about tonight. Now, my guest, Judith Crowley, is a fellow humanist. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yes.
And I met her at our Sunday morning gatherings of the Humanists of Greater Portland. And I've been working for some time to get her to come on. And finally she's here tonight because she's got so much to talk about. She's traveled in Southeast Asia, among other places. And I wanted her to come on the show and share with you some of the stuff she was saying to me and others at the Humanists about impressions and things that she saw in her last sojourn in Southeast Asia. So she finally agreed to come on, and she's here now. And I'm excited about seeing you here. We've got so much stuff. Before we started rolling cameras, we were deciding how much of this we'd have time to show. So I decided, I told our director, the good Dennis, that we needed 3 hours for this show to cover everything that Judith has got here. But Dennis said, no, Dr. Don, we're going to go with a normal show. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you for directing. So I asked for a little information from Judy about who she is and where she came from. So I'll read this that she emailed me and then ask some more questions before we go into the second part of the show, where we'll talk about those places in Southeast Asia that you visited: Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam. As you can see, we've got some handiwork or some crafts or some stuff that was done over there, but you talk about that later on. You said, I'm a retired traveler who has taught ESL, English as a second language, and is curious about the world. I currently live in Lake Oswego.
Yes.
I have known Barbie and Vic Ulmer of our developing world for 20 plus years. The Ulmers led my exploration into Southeast Asia, showing me the way through Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam. It was a wonderful journey, assisted by tour guides who showed us the way to many aspects of life in their countries. So, okay, let's go on talking about who you are a little more.
Okay.
Okay?
Sure.
But first, how are you feeling right now?
This is quite fun. I hadn't imagined to have such a marvelous opportunity to talk about a part of the world that we've lost a little bit of attention in that direction.
Yeah, and you mentioned about getting a DVD of the show so you could send it to somebody.
My children want to see me on television.
Uh-huh. And
So
how
this is
many
really
children
fun.
are there?
I have 2 children. They're adults in their early 30s.
And where are they?
One is in Oakland, California,
Uh-huh.
and the other one's in Seattle,
Okay.
nearby.
And they're going to be proud of you when they see what you're doing on the Dr. Don show. Okay, so my questions go like, when were you born and where was that?
I was born a very long time ago.
Okay, I'm embarrassed. I shouldn't ask you that.
That's all right.
So
you
where
can
were
be
you born?
embarrassed. I was born in Washington, D.C.,
Uh-huh.
and the president at the time was Truman.
Uh-huh.
And I have spent several Easter Sundays rolling eggs on the White House lawn.
Really?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
I know D.C. quite well. I learned to drive there, so it's quite an adventure to learn to drive when you have roundabouts as part of your existence.
That's rather unique to Washington, D.C., huh?
Yes. And they have them in Lake Oswego now, but they're smaller.
Uh-huh.
But
You think it's a good idea, roundabouts?
I do. I know how to use them well. L'Enfant designed Washington, D.C. The French architect designed D.C. to come away from the capital with these spokes of a wheel.
Mm-hmm.
And then each time you reach a certain place where you need to have a cross street in this spoke of the wheel, you have a roundabout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that. I've been back a couple of times, and each time it seems so strange because it's logically laid out rather than the hodgepodge of streets and layouts we have in other cities. But continuing on now, if I ask you a question that you don't want to answer, you can not answer or say get lost or something.
Okay, sure.
So since I met you at the Humanist and we talked a little bit about your philosophy, do you have a religious preference as such?
I do not, but I have practiced Buddhism for some years, and practice where I came from in San Jose, California, in a metaphysical environment.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's all wonderful. There's something for everyone. That's the beauty behind both of those traditions.
Can you be a Muslim or a Christian and still
You certainly can
be a member of those?
Yes, you can.
All right.
And there's no membership. There's no membership dues. There's nothing. It's like Humanists. You come, you present yourself, and you leave with more than what you came with often.
How did you happen to choose that direction?
A lovely couple I met at the YMCA recommended I come, and it's been a grand adventure at Humanist every Sunday.
Okay.
It's just wonderful meeting you and meeting so many good people that are interested in the world.
Me and so many good people, meaning there's a difference. The bad, never mind.
Yeah, those bad people, they don't care.
So how about your formal education? Is that worth commenting about?
I graduated at San Francisco State University and have taught. I taught 20 years, and then I worked as an accountant for the second 20 years of my career, and now I'm retired.
The second 20 years of your career?
Mm-hmm. It seems to have taken a split about the time I left teaching and came into an office environment.
How'd you choose teaching English as a second language?
Because in San Jose, it's a multi-ethnic environment. In San Jose, probably as much as Seattle. I have yet to experience that in Portland, but I taught at a high school where there was something like 121 dialects.
Oh my gosh.
And the teachers didn't know what to do. People don't understand what it is that it's necessary to communicate with people of a different ethnic background, but that so want to be here and so want to be able to live peacefully, kindly.
So you taught English as a second language to all sorts of people?
All sorts of people.
So it's in teaching English as a second language, do you recall a particular student or a situation or event that has produced a memory for you in your adventures or your excitement or your joy of teaching English as a second language?
I can't recall anything specific. It's the teaching of English as a second language that can become in and of itself difficult rather than just nouns, working with the whats of the world. The American way of teaching ESL many times is complex. You know, who cares about grammar? You know, when you're dealing with another language, people that want to communicate what it is they where's the restroom, where's my pencil, things of that nature.
I would imagine it takes a person with a special kind of an interest or personality to take on that kind of a job. There's something else that goes on, I think, between you and these students that is beyond some sort of an intellectual education or teaching. I
think that is true. It is beyond. It's much more in depth than just the nuts and bolts of teaching a subject. Mm-hmm. And after I taught ESL, my real love is teaching women skills to place them in the workforce.
Teaching women skills to place them in the workforce?
To help women learn a skill so they can find a job.
So where do you teach these women?
I teach bookkeeping, and I've taught typing, the old typing. I mean, I don't know of anyone who takes typing these days. The old keyboard typing, for heaven's sake.
There's a new name for it now, keyboard entry.
It's keyboard entry, right.
Yeah.
Bookkeeping and all those subjects that enabled women to get a job.
And
So I'm moving right away from ESL. I only did that for a while, but I moved into teaching women reentry skills.
And you're doing that now?
No, I'm retired.
You're retired. You found that enjoyable?
I loved it.
Where'd you find these women to teach these
Through
skills?
the junior college. There are several junior colleges in San Jose area and in adult ed.
Oh, how long have you been up here in the Portland area?
Just 2 years.
That's right, 2 years.
Just a short time.
You going to stay?
Yes, oh, I just love it. I just love it. I didn't love it the first 2 years, but I've loved it this year. Going back to California in June, it was so dry and so brown.
I know.
But it's home. It's when the sun shone today, I knew it was like California. I loved it. I mean, I sit in the sun and just bake.
Don't believe it's awful up here. We don't want any more Californians coming up here.
Oh, yes, you do.
And do you have a partner?
No, I'm alone. I'm sorry, that's my phone. I didn't turn it off. I apologize.
It's okay. So then you mentioned 2 children.
2 wonderful, beautiful girls.
And their names?
Erin and Cameron. Cameron is my oldest, and Erin is newly engaged to a young man who is a muralist.
So you want to put, is that phone nearby?
It's over there. It's off now. If someone else calls again, it won't be off, but.
All right, when we take a break in a little bit, we
Fine.
can turn it off. Yeah, because
Thank you. I'd
then
be
the
happy
cameras
to
will
do
be off too, sure. How about any hobbies that you have ongoing nowadays?
Oh, hobbies. Traveling. That's a high priority for me, is to travel.
How did you get to go to Southeast Asia?
Well, Barbie and Vic Ulmer have a small nonprofit. They're ex-teachers, and they have a small nonprofit called Our Developing World in Saratoga, California. And they've led tours for just years, 20 years or plus. And so this is not their first journey to Southeast Asia, but they do take people on these marvelous experienced journeys.
And how long were you there this time?
I was there in each country for a week.
Oh, that must have been wonderful.
It was wonderful.
My wife and I have been talking about going, and I want to go so bad. Maybe next year we can go, and we'll get some pointers from you on how and what to do.
It is so worthwhile to go see how the other half of the world lives, because it's nothing like the Americans.
How about your political persuasion? Are you left, right, center? Or
Oh, I am so left. It's stunning. Did you see Obama today on television?
Go on.
He's magnificent. He's going to be. Karen is clearly a
Rick,
Republican.
Be nice now. Camera 3, Rick over there drives me nuts. Rick Williams, he's so right-wing, he's wearing a Bush t-shirt tonight. I tried to ignore him. And fairly often I've got progressive or left guests on, and Rick holds his breath, and now and then he just can't stand it. He yelled out just oops. It's just an Obama supporter.
Pretty funny.
But can we digress for a moment?
Absolutely.
And you support Obama. Some people say, and I say, I'm concerned about Obama's being too accommodating to the right in order to get elected. Is he being politically astute, or his principles really as progressive as I'd like to think they are? Defend Obama, I dare you.
Well, he has to listen to the other side. That is his nature. He's a peacemaker. He is a person who's going to bring both sides. He's bipartisan, both sides together. You've got to work with people that you don't like. We must work with people we don't like.
All right. I'm going to let that go.
Oh, okay.
How about the mainstream media? Do you see that?
I think the mainstream media has lots of flaws in it. They didn't treat Hillary very well, and they don't treat people of minorities very well.
So, Rick, be nice. Do you have any memberships in political, social, or civic organizations that are worth mentioning?
Well, the Democratic National Committee.
Committee?
Yes, They're doing a challenge grant right now, so I've done my part.
Okay. And
MoveOn.org, everybody has to have a membership to MoveOn.org. It costs nothing.
okay.
And they keep us informed.
Okay.
They sent out Gore's conversation about climate change. It was, Al Gore is just one of the best people in the whole world, and it's going to help. It is going to help having people like Gore speak out and set goals for us. He's asked that under 10 years, if we can change our energy focus into something that's perfectly available to us today. That's wind and sun.
Do you think it can be done?
I do.
What will it take?
I don't know what it will take. It'll take people that are fascinated by the concept of what would it take, and he points this out. What did it take when Kennedy said we'll put a man on the moon? And I think I'm paraphrasing Gore here, but it took 8 years and 9 months. It didn't take 10 years. So
you've done your homework.
I've done my homework.
And someone said, what about the Manhattan Project to split the atom? So I agree with if the U.S. Political establishment decided we were going to do it, we could do it in 10 years. And we could wean ourselves away from carbon-based fuel and energy. I think it would come to pass if we found some sort of a way to have major corporations continue to make the kind of money they're making using the carbon-based energy system. Then it would happen in 2 or 3 years. But anyway, I'm grinding my axe again.
Well, that's all right. But the website, Gore's website, is wecansolveit.org.
All right, now
I'd love to mention that. wecansolveit.org.
We can solve it. What's important?
What's important?
Yes.
To have everybody working in a cohesive fashion towards similar goals. We've got to be free of the corporations are not going to run our lives any longer.
Okay. Last question for you until we take a break. Are you your brother's or sister's keeper?
No.
Then? What's your role in life if it's not to keep your brother or sister, what that means?
What does that mean, to keep your brothers or sisters? People have to make up their own minds.
Okay.
They have to do their own soul searching.
Last question before we take a break.
Okay.
Tell me something that happened to you today that brought a smile to your face, something unexpected.
I talked to my daughter, my younger daughter in Oakland.
Uh-huh. It made you smile?
Yes,
Look at you
she
smiling
made me
now.
smile. She made me smile.
So what do you want to say to her in camera 2 right there? Tell her what you want to say to her.
Oh, I love her so much. And she's so smart. And she's going to do well in her advanced studies at school. She's re-entering for a master's at California State University, Hayward.
Uh-huh.
And she's going to do well. She does well at everything she does. She does well.
So that we don't show that you're showing favorites, do you have something to say to your other daughter? Camera 2, look
yes,
right in
and
there
I
and tell her.
adore my older daughter, Cameron.
Uh-huh.
And she's going to do well too. She's in Seattle, and I get to see her in September. I'm going to go spend a week with her.
Yeah.
And I'm delighted. I'm looking forward to that.
Did Mom do well in raising those 2 girls?
I think they're wonderful girls. I don't know how much credit I can take, but they're delicious. They're delicious girls.
Okay.
Thank you for asking.
You betcha. It looks like it's close for us for time to take a break, so we're going to put up on the screen some important information that you may want to write down during the break. So get a pencil or a pen and some paper, and then I will ask you to put up panels. Don't put those up yet, only when I ask you to. Broadcast information for you viewers who live in the Washington County part of the Portland, Oregon metro area. Conversations with Dr. Don shows a broadcast 5 times each week, Typically, a new show is first aired on a Tuesday and is rebroadcast on the following Friday through Monday. We have a live call-in show periodically, and this month, on the 31st of this month, on that Thursday evening, we're going to have a live call-in show for the viewers in the Portland, Oregon metro area. You can call in and give us your say on whatever it is that we'll be talking about during the show, and we'll have these panels up when we're talking in a minute or so. And you can see conversations with Dr. Don on the internet. That information on how to do that will be up in a moment too. So now let's put those panels up on the screen in order so that the viewing audience can take down information if they want to. And then we'll be back in 2 or 3 minutes after you've seen these panels and we've taken a break. Okay, we're back. Thanks for staying tuned. For you viewers who missed the opening of the show, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people, like most of you out there, about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and about what it is that we decided to talk about tonight. And Judy and I decided to talk about her impressions of Southeast Asia today, and she has a collection of photographs and artifacts, if I may, and all sorts of stuff. So she's going to tell us about her travels in those countries, in Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam, and some impressions she's had. And in our talking, we will also show you some of these photographs or postcards that fit in with what she's saying. So you mentioned earlier that you went there on a tour as these friends of yours invited you to go along, and you're going to go back, are you, when you get a chance?
I don't know that I'll go back.
Mm-hmm.
Quite frankly, I don't know that I'll go back. It's a huge trip. It's 14 hours.
Wow.
That's a long distance. And I have other places I want to go.
Okay.
So
you're glad you went?
I'm very glad I went.
Yeah.
I think everyone should go. And I met some of the most interesting, lovely souls in this world. You know, they're just, and good people.
Good people.
Good people.
Yeah. So where shall we start now?
Well, let's start with Cambodia.
Okay.
Okay. Of the 3 countries that I visited, Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam, Cambodia is the poorest of the countries. It doesn't, there's water, potable water is not available. It's the bottled water routine.
There's such rainfall there, such a wet country.
It's very
and
dry.
canals and
Right. When I went, it was very dry. They only have 2 seasons, as I understand it. They don't have the 4 seasons as we know it.
uh-huh.
And so I saw rice being grown in the water buffalo, lots of things. And what I went to see, and where our developing world couple took me, was to places where people are surviving, children that are being raised by not their parents. Their parents may not be living. We spent the night at an orphanage, and went to a preschool, went to an elementary school, saw these wonderful children. And we did see, most notably, the street children. Cambodia is known as the street children.
Street children. Can we get a shot of that, Dennis?
And this is not the best source, but the street children, there is a training facility in Hanoi. No, that's not true. That's Vietnam. I'm getting my cities mixed up. But there is a training facility for 700 street children. If you
Why
can
are
imagine,
there so many street children there?
they're abandoned, whatever. They don't have families, and we've heard about them in the press. I had heard about them, but then when I saw their training facility, I was phenomenally impressed. They have many of them are teenagers, and they are responsible for their younger sister or brother. And there was an oval table where the younger brother or sister's coloring and playing with paper, while their older sibling, their teenage sibling, is in school learning how to repair motorbikes or do barbershop or hairdresser.
What happened to their parents?
Don't know. Don't know. I just know that this facility is 700 of them being retrained. And what we experience with great pleasure is that the restaurant that they've opened is been turned over fully to them, the teenagers. So they're late teenagers, early 20s, and the restaurant serves fabulous food, just fabulous food, and there is one shirt that the trainer wears, the teacher. They have a T-shirt and it says teacher, and then all the others say student, so you know who you're dealing with, and they might take your order, and it might be a little cumbersome for a brand new student, but the food is there. And what was really fun is not only was the food good, but the jazz was playing jazz like a restaurant in San Francisco or in Portland.
Really?
Yeah, there was jazz being played. And
Recorded
I said,
jazz?
Recorded jazz. It was just darling.
What kind of food did they serve you that was so good? Was it food,
Cambodian food.
Cambodian food,
And they do the tapas arrangement. It's a small portions in small bowls.
Yes.
And so you're paying small prices. The prices for food in this environment was, well, cheaper than a restaurant in the States, without a doubt. But what was most pleasurable is that the kids serving it, and they were so gracious. The thank yous, and they greet you at the door and make sure you're seated, and it was lovely. So that's part of the training facility. Opening this restaurant was, and they're now detached from the training facility. They're running the restaurant. And those kids, when they take a break, for instance, they go over to the training facility, and you might find them on cots in the hallways because they're resting.
So what's going to happen with them as they grow up into adulthood, those kids that are being trained in this training school?
The plan is that those kids can then open their own restaurant. You know, that's the intention. So or run their own restaurant. They don't have to be at this street kids. And they ask you, the reason I put this up is because they ask you, please do not give money or food or anything to begging children. It does not serve them. It does not serve the community. These children need to be not pandered to or being given free handouts. They need to learn the skills that are available for them to learn.
What about the other Cambodian citizens other than the children? Do you have any thoughts about those that you encountered, or
Well,
your impressions
I
of them?
encountered a lot of NGOs, non-governmental agencies, organizations that are managing some of the infrastructure, like schools. The schools are handled by some of the schools are handled by NGOs. NGO is a big word. You know, it's used a lot. The Women's Union.
Non-governmental organization.
That's right. The Women's Union, and they're working on improving the status of women in that country.
So the alternative then is a government organization
Mm-hmm.
versus a non-governmental organization. So if it's government organization, there's a chance of money being swiped and corruption.
I think
but
so.
NGOs, there's less of a chance of that, huh?
Supposedly that is true, yes.
And the people who set up these NGOs are pretty altruistic,
I think so.
caring about
Yes, they
human
are.
beings more
Yes.
than making profits.
Yes, they're not into making profits.
Yeah.
The couple that I went with from our developing world took 9 suitcases full of things as we traveled. And one of the stops we made was where the prosthetics are being made for people who have been hurt by landmine cluster bombs.
Prosthetics being made there in Cambodia?
Legs, extra, in Cambodia. Went to the facility where the prosthetics are being made. And after they get their prosthetic, then they practice on, let's say, something that is similar to their village. In other words, the terrain in a village is irregular.
Sure.
So they train in this setting
How to use them.
how to use how to walk up an irregular hill with the prosthesis. And the couple I went with took suitcases full of extra shoes. 1 shoe is all they need. 1 shoe for the bottom of the prosthetic or their other foot.
So there are more citizens of Cambodia with missing limbs
Yes.
because of the Vietnam War and cluster bombs and landmines.
Yes.
Oh, terrible. Oh, I get tempted to go over in that direction, but let's don't go there anymore. What else can you think about Cambodia and your being there that the viewing audience would be curious about?
Well, they would find the museum for the Khmer Rouge, Khmur Rouge. The people treated their own people. The government treated their people so badly, and the museum is like a Holocaust museum.
I think of that film some years ago, The Killing Fields.
Killing Fields, yes.
That
Absolutely.
really happened.
Yes, it really happened, and there are
my
pictures of people starving, and you see the cells in which they were kept, small little sections of places where they were kept on the floor, concrete floor.
You know, I've come to think, as I look back in history, there's no particular group or country who is more capable of these kinds of mass atrocities than any other. Looking back, I think when I come back in my second life, I'm going to come back as a pigeon. I'm through with being a human anymore. So shall we move
So it
on
was
to
tough,
another
yes,
country?
yes.
And we're going to talk about Laos next?
Well, the last thing I want to say about the temple called the Angkor Wat.
Yes. Do you want to put that up?
I can put this up. The temple at
I've heard
Angkor
about
Wat
that,
is
yeah.
very, it's been there 1,000 years, and I found it difficult to walk on. They don't want you to step onto it. There's a lot of, there's no rails for you to step up and into, and it's all over the city. So it's not in one location. You can't just get off the bus or out of your van and go see the Angkor Wat. You have to be driven to the various locations.
It's very old, huh?
It's very old, yes. And the banyan tree is growing into it, so it makes the building unstable. So that's all I wanted to say about that. That is in Siem Reap. Is the community.
And along the way, the people were gracious and kind and lovely, and
couldn't have asked for lovelier community of people.
I would think they'd be pretty upset with you, white-eyed Westerners, considering what we did to them during the Vietnam War era.
But that is the tour that our developing world people put together. It's called the Forgiveness Tour.
Okay.
Because they have genuinely, they let go of all of that. I took a fall at the orphanage, and I had to go to an emergency facility. The orphanage attendant made sure I got there, and they put 5 stitches in my head, and it charged me $25. I mean, I was expecting several $1,000 bill.
You thought you were
Right.
back in America, did you?
Right, I was in America, right. I'm American, just give me the bill, I'll pay it. But it was fine, because later I had stitches removed in Laos, and they said it was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was a beautiful job.
So
I
did
share
you
that.
recover from the thumping on your head?
Sure, I've recovered. My head's a little swollen, but what's new?
So shall we move on?
Sure, let's do.
Now we were talking about Laos next.
Yes, so the second country we went to was Laos, and Laos is genuinely a beautiful country. You must go.
Okay.
It's a beautiful country, and it's a Buddhist country. So the Buddhists here are bringing out their begging bowl.
Beautiful.
They beg in the mornings for rice, and it's just an incredible country. This is one of the villages. And it's just gorgeous. Yeah, they're just gorgeous. You can walk through the villages, and in Laos there is lots of different Laotians, and one of them is a subset called Hmongs, the Hmong people, H-M-O-N-G.
Yeah.
And the children of the Hmongs are all the children were delightful, but the Hmongs have, and this is more of their handicrafts. Keep in mind, the handicrafts is how these people survive.
Mm-hmm.
The women survive by doing handicrafts. You can tell by the hats that they're wearing here. There's different groups of Laotians in this pictured here. And this is a Laotian scarf that I brought, that they made. And this is, I think this is Cambodian actually, this piece. It's a beautiful piece.
Can you tell a difference, no, that's not the way to talk about it, between those three countries and the populations of those three countries? How are they alike or different, such that you can say this is a Laotian and this is a Cambodian and this is a Vietnamese?
Well, I can't tell very much. I mean, I think of myself very often in very critical terms of the ugly American. You know, I know so little, but I know that Laotians were Lao. They were kind and good, but they are not as poor as the Cambodians. It's real, and they're on the Mekong River. There were restaurants. They were just like our restaurants, with a nice river view. Yeah. And we ate well. Anything that's cooked was just delightful. So.
Oh, right, Laos. Is there anything more you want to say about Laos before we move to Vietnam?
Well, Laos, I would go back. That's the country I'd go back to visit, because I met some people there, and we had lots of fun talking and having a glass of something. And people from Thailand, the expats from Manchester, England, come down to Laos for a little reprieve. So I shared a bottle of Jameson with and it was fun. He fixed me dinner, and we had lots of fun talking. So that was Laos, and people come back to Laos, and I'm sure people come back to Cambodia. But Laos is cooler. You can see that in these pictures. Cambodia is hot and sticky. Phew. So that's Laos. That's the village, and it's cooler, and it's easier for me to be able to handle the weather. I'm a softie. Can't be helped.
So shall we move on now to Vietnam?
Let's go to Vietnam.
Okay.
Now, Vietnam is a wonderful experience, and I brought these because I have to show you this, and only with a postcard could I show you.
Did you go into North or South Vietnam? Is there a difference anymore, or is it
was
pretty
in Ho Chi Minh
homogeneous?
City, which is the old Saigon.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, look at that. I was in one of those vans.
Oh,
I was in one of those vans.
And we thought we had some crowds of bicyclists here in Portland.
And Barbie and Vic Ulmer said that when we got to an intersection, there was a stoplight. They said in 3 years since they've been there, that was the first stoplight. So to stop the traffic, so allow this traffic to go, the lateral traffic, we are so accustomed to that, aren't we? With stoplights controlling they don't have.
We got to send a descendant of L'Enfant, what's his name? He's in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
So some roundabouts there.
Put something there.
And you were in the middle of that, huh?
I was in the middle of that. I mean, I was stunned most of the time sitting in the van. We had drivers in every country and guides in every country. I don't know anyone in their right mind that would, I'm sure others would call me out of my mind, but they we don't drive there. You hire someone from the peace movement or whoever. There are people to be hired, and they drive you around because it's just safer. It's very dangerous to be traveling in this kind of.
One more of a bunch of bicyclists.
Lord have mercy.
People.
Yes, right. But Vietnam is a gorgeous country. Yeah, that's more of that traffic. It looks like an aerial view, but you look outside. I waved at people, and there are bicycles, there's motor scooters there's cars, so a little of everything. And we did have an interview in Laos with the head of the new hospital built with Danish funds by the Chinese in Laos. Now that's the coalescing that's going on, and Americans don't have any idea about that.
Wow.
Danish funds pay for the Chinese to build in Laos a hospital, and we had an interview with the director of the hospital, a surgeon.
Are these NGOs involved or the government's involved?
No, not necessarily. Not only in Cambodia do NGOs play a major part. They could have played a major part in these other countries, but I can't tell you that is the case.
Okay.
So this is more Vietnam, and Vietnam has hills like Laos does. It's attached to Laos, you can see, and it's close. We were on the road to China. We could have gone another 26 kilometers and gone into China. So that was fun. And our guide took...
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Isn't that gorgeous?
Yeah.
So there and our guide we stopped for lunch, and he had a fried bat. A bat to eat. I went, oh no! But that's their local fare.
Any of their local cuisine?
I did eat their local cuisine, but not bats. Bats are not on my list. I had vegetables, lots of cooked vegetables, and it was delicious.
So what parts of Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh City, were you in what used to be South Vietnam at all?
We went to an Agent Orange training facility, and that's where I learned that the American government hasn't admitted much culpability for Agent Orange.
After all these years?
After all and these are third generation that are being trained, and they have large encephalitis, they have large heads, or they're malformed, and they're in a training facility where they're counting using things on the table like a glass, or it's heart-rendering.
So it's your impression that this is a result of Agent Orange and not a result of Darwin's natural selection?
No. They know it's Agent Orange, and there are people, Americans over there, doing work to open these schools to make sure this is, but it takes someone from another country to come in with money to do that, and attention. There are people from the Pacific Northwest here over there.
So the effects of Agent Orange is not just on the next generation, but continuing on in succeeding generations.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
It's heart-rendering.
Yes, it is.
So we saw them. We saw women in a sewing environment, and it was understood that they would probably never be married because of their deformity. And so a Brit has come over and taken pictures of them in this garb, their marriage garb, and they're very proud of their pictures hanging on the wall. That was me, and she's all dressed up. It was really quite precious. So, and further things in Vietnam, I think probably I was completely taken with the traffic, I'm sorry to say, but each of our guides treated us exceedingly well. We had a lunch. Our guide took us to his own home. We sat on their futons and were served lunch. That was in Vietnam. And in Laos, we were taken to his home, which is on stilts, a home that's up in the air 14 feet. And the local gentleman played the indigenous instruments, and we danced. And we were all dancing, and so the building started to sway, and I recall going, oh my golly, unaccustomed as I am to a swaying building.
Were you drinking any of the local hooch?
No, we weren't drinking any of the local hooch. They thought Coca-Cola, and it was warm, Pepsi. Yeah. They bought the Pepsi on the way in, and it was warm, so it's not anything we want to experience here. We don't have to. So that's another thing that was interesting. And on the way, and we went to the heritage site called Halong Bay, and traveled in Halong Bay, and we were voted on the internet to keep it as a heritage site. I also went with a guide down the Mekong River, and I bought lots of silk clothing for people back here, and she put them away quickly in the bow of the boat, and then we moved over to the center of the boat where the federales, as I call them, the federales, but they were collecting a tariff for using the river with their guns across their lap.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my golly, you know. Oh.
It's 14 hours to fly from here.
From here to, I think we stopped in Thailand and then got a Vietnam airplane to Cambodia.
And all told, you're running about 14 hours of flying.
Well, that first stop was just 14 hours on China Airlines.
Oh my gosh.
And
What'd you do on the plane that whole time?
Slept. And they serve you noodles. You know, give us the midnight snack is noodles. Because your tummy's a little upset when you're making these long leaps.
Oh my gosh.
So.
Was it 747?
I don't remember.
It's a big,
huge aircraft, of course.
So you could get up and walk around it a little bit.
Yes, you could. Just a little bit, sure.
I noticed you've got some unique looking bracelets.
Oh, yes.
And
I
one
work
on each wrist.
Yes, I work.
Can you get a shot of that?
My attention.
So you can tell us about that?
I want to work with the rest of the world. That's why I like Obama. But this is the bracelets made by the Ashwar Indians of Ecuador.
Ecuador.
It's Ecuador. We're going to save the rainforest. We're not going to let the oil people go in and develop oil interest in Ecuador.
You do-gooder leftist liberals.
It's true. It's true. So Pachamama Alliance out of Fort Mason, San Francisco is working in this regard. So I'm a Pachamama Alliance seminar facilitator. In addition to traveling, I just to help the world in whatever way I can. My energy needs to be spent in doing good works, and this is one of the good works. This is the Ashwar people, and the neat thing about the Ecuadorians, they have just included one of the aspects of their new constitution is to include nature. Nature is a viable entity, so that we don't abuse nature. Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
It's the first country in the entire world that includes nature in their constitution. Is now, but only about 2 weeks ago.
Ecuador. Is there a woman president of Ecuador now?
No, I think his name is C. Starts with a C. It's not the.
Korea?
No, I think he's Peru.
Yeah.
I may be mistaken, but.
So.
But we're working. Lynn and Bill Twist are some of the founders of Pachamama Alliance.
Mm-hmm. And have you been?
I have not been to Ecuador.
Is that one of your
one of my goals? Yeah.
Yeah.
The Galapagos Islands are a part of the Ecuador.
Oh yes.
So people go there for that.
So you'll be doing some more traveling, huh?
I hope so. Yes.
All right.
Very much so.
Now, any overall thought or comment you'd like to make about your trip to Southeast Asia, your impressions of Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam that you'd like to tell my viewers about? That you're glad you went. And
I'm very glad. I would encourage everyone to go.
You want to go, but you may go if you got a chance to go back again.
Yes,
yeah.
I would go and see what these people. They're wonderful people, and they have they like Americans. So go, enjoy.
All right. So it looks like we're getting close to time to stop.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you earlier about to get an idea of how it is that you think and behave the way that you do in your life now. Do you think of anybody from history, man or woman, or alive today, who you would admire or look up to and say those are fine human beings? Any heroes?
Any living heroes?
Or from the past?
Well, John F. Kennedy, of course.
John Kennedy.
Uh-huh.
Why?
He had vision. I really appreciate people who have vision. Change is inevitable. We have to accept change. It's not something that is, we can't have people get stuck.
Okay, so it's close for us, time for us to stop. So keep your pens and pencils handy out there, and you may want to jot down something that we'll show you in the closing credits. Oh, thanks for watching. And I invite you to give us feedback, both positive and negative, about any aspect of the show, and I mean it. It helps us to give you a better show in the future. My email address is friendlydon@aol.com. My guest's email address was up on the screen earlier during the show. And if you write me, let me know if it's okay or not okay for me to read your email on the air, considering that it's an adult show. Again, for you real late tuners in, you channel surfers out there, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals, and whatever it is that we decide to talk about during the time before the camera. And I just saw my guest for the second show come in a minute ago. So I have some public service announcements that I typically make that I think it's useful for you to know about out there. And let's start off with the Alliance for Democracy. That's a social activist organization, a national organization. They really work at things that are critical and important for the survival of our democracy and what the Founding Fathers had in mind when they wrote the Constitution and followed with the Bill of Rights. There's the website and the phone number for the National Alliance for Democracy, a great organization. And I belong to a local chapter here in Portland, and there's a website for the Portland chapter of the Alliance for Democracy, and the phone number. And David Delk is our chapter co-chair. He's a hard worker for things that have to do, again, with what's important for us to be good citizens. And we meet a couple of times a month, and we work on local issues and statewide issues. And it's one of the few organizations that there is ongoing groups that are working day to day, like going to state capitals and city council meetings and speaking up for what we should be about as a democracy. Now, we'll tell you about the ACLU. That's one of my favorites, the American Civil Liberties Union. There's the website for the national office of the ACLU. Without the ACLU, I'm sure we would have lost more of our civil liberties than we have so far. And there's a hotline for the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union. If you think that you have been stopped by law enforcement because of how you look, rather than them suspecting that you've done something illegal, then the ACLU wants to know about it, because sometimes local police, although well-intentioned, will be caught up in the fever to fight terrorism and stop somebody because they look like an Arab or a Muslim or something. One time there used to be the DWP, driving while black, and the focus nowadays is sometimes law enforcement is going after people because of how they look. So passing on that, the American Humanist Association, I mentioned that earlier, I'm a member of that organization. There's a website for the national office of the American Humanist Association, and we have a local chapter of the AHA here in Portland. We meet every Sunday morning at Friendly House on Northwest 26th Avenue, and we have speakers and we have discussions and we have some exciting events like regular church folk from 9:30 until 11 every Sunday morning. I don't have the current schedule for what's going on this time, so I won't put that up on the board just yet. And let's see, we're getting close to time to stop. So before we say goodnight, I want to say thank you to my wonderful crew and the managers and teachers at TVCTV studios in Beaver, Oregon, where I produce and host the Conversations with Dr. Don shows. I also want to thank you viewers in other parts of the country where you're watching. Thank you for watching, and for your Washington County, Oregon viewers. If you didn't get all the broadcast information we had up on the screen during the break, you could get on the web at www.yourtvtv.org, www.yourtvtv.org. If you live in another part of the country and are watching this show, contact your local community access cable TV studio for information about when they plan to broadcast Dr. Don shows in the future. Do you have a closing thought or comment briefly? We have a few seconds left.
Thank you very much for having me come and tell you how delightful Southeast Asia is.
Yeah, and now I really got to go. And thank you again for coming on. My final thought for the day is when you see somebody who glances in your direction, they may be watching your face, smile. Just give them a grin and see what happens, all right? Now, remember KFC? I'm always talking about KFC, but I'm stopping my shows. And you think of Kentucky Fried Chicken, you know, the Colonel's KFC, but we have a Dr. Don's KFC. It's kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind, be friendly, and be charitable to you too. And you, and you, and you, and you, and you. Thanks again for watching. Good night.